Welcome to the Deep Dive. We gather the key insights from complex source material to make you truly well-informed. And today we are focusing on one of the most acutely vulnerable groups in the UK, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, or UASC. Our mission in this deep dive is to trace their path through the UK system. We want to look at the legal and emotional hurdles they face, especially as they turn 18. It's this transition that's often called a statutory cliff edge. So we want to understand what they carry with them, what legal maze they enter, and really how a consistent, supportive mentor like those in the Grand Mentors program can be a lifeline.
A navigational lifeline is exactly the right word for it because the stakes are just incredibly high. I mean, we're talking about young people who have often fled conflict, persecution, exploitation before they even arrive here. Their journey is just defined by deep trauma and this profound multi-layered loss. And if you're trying to help someone build a new life, you have to understand that context of instability first. It's the essential first step.
That context, that burden is just staggering.
Mm-hmm.
Can we start there? Let's walk through their experience. The sources show some clear patterns in where they come from. In recent years, countries like Eritrea, Sudan, Vietnam, Albania, Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
They've accounted for over 80% of all UASC asylum applications.
Mm-hmm.
And demographically, it's overwhelmingly young men, around 92%.
And regardless of their origin, the trauma exposure is multi-layered. Experts actually categorize it into three distinct phases. There's the trauma from their home country, then the acute trauma during their flight, which, often involves trafficking and exploitation.
Right.
And then finally, the trauma of the settlement phase itself, just navigating the bureaucracy and the isolation here in the UK.
It's staggering that the effects of that journey are still dictating their ability to learn and thrive years later.
Right.
What's the lasting impact of that trauma?
Well, what's fascinating here is how this severe trauma manifests physically and cognitively, not just emotionally. We see poor concentration, significant memory impairment, increased anger, and critically severe sleep disturbances. So difficulty sleeping, chronic nightmares, intrusive memories.
I see.
And the sources highlight a specific behavior. Many UASC had to adopt nocturnal habits to survive their journey. They travel at night and sleep during the day for safety.
And those patterns just persist.
They often persist when they arrive, yeah. And that completely undermines their ability to engage with something like college or training.
We have a really powerful quote that illustrates this. One young person said, "I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. I still get nightmares. I still get flashbacks."
Mm-hmm.
That's not just an emotional thing, is it? That's a huge physical barrier to just functioning day to day.
Absolutely. And that physical and cognitive stress is accompanied by this profound sense of loss. It goes so far beyond bereavement. It's the loss of country, of language, of culture, and really the loss of childhood itself. It's that combination of trauma and ongoing social isolation that makes settling in such a continuous struggle.
So after this dangerous journey, they finally arrive. What's the immediate legal structure that they enter?
The system is designed for immediate protection. So when they arrive, they're automatically treated as a looked-after child, a LAC. That's under Section 20 of the Children Act, 1989.
So that status, it puts a legal duty on the local authorities, right?
Yeah.
To protect them.
A clear, immediate duty to safeguard them and promote their welfare, yes. And beyond that, the legal standard in Section 55 of the Borders and Immigration Act requires the Home Secretary to consider the best interests of the child at all times. Medically, pediatricians are often the first professionals to try and identify these complex, layered needs, especially the hidden wounds of trauma.
Okay, so they arrive, they're seen by professionals. But sometimes the first and most damaging challenge isn't physical, it's administrative. It's a challenge to their age. The age assessment process.
Yes, age assessments. They are required when there is significant doubt about a young person's age. They have to be carried out in a specific legal way. It's called Merton compliant. But, the process itself can inflict new trauma.
How so? I mean, if they're just trying to figure out if they're a child or an adult, why is that so distressing?
Because it can feel like a challenge to the very core of their identity. One young person in a source said their declared age was the one thing he had to hold on to from his mom.
Wow.
So having that challenged by the state, it causes immediate mental health distress. It makes them feel instantly distrusted. And even after all those initial checks, identification of need is really difficult. We rely on the standard screening tool, the Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire, the SDQ.
But is that fit for purpose?
Well, sources question whether a questionnaire designed for a child in say stable UK care, can really detect the complex psychological effects of the trauma a UASC carries.
So they're slipping through the cracks.
The tools just aren't quite right.
Which brings us to the moment of truth. That crucial shift when they turn 18. This is where that term cliff edge really applies.
It's an immense transition because regardless of where their asylum application is, and that can take years, their statutory support fundamentally changes. They go from being a child under the Children Act to becoming a care leaver.
So what does care leaver actually mean for their rights? It sounds very generic.
It's a clunky legal term, but it's the key that unlocks continued support. If a UASC has been in care for at least 13 weeks since they were 14, they become a former relevant child at 18.
And that status is vital.
It's vital because it entitles them to support until they're 21, or, and this is critical, up to 25, if they're in an agreed program of education or training. And that has to be interpreted really broadly, right? It could be basic literacy or English language courses, not just university.
And who is the steady hand here? They're assigned a personal advisor, a PA. That person is supposed to be the central pillar of support, guiding their pathway plan.
Exactly. And the pathway plan is the legal map for their transition into adult life. It has to cover everything: accommodation, practical life skills, education, employment, financial support, and maybe most crucially, contingency plans in case independent living fails. It's an enormous task for any 18-year-old, let alone one navigating all this.
And their situation is so uniquely complex because their very right to be here is unsettled, which means authorities have to engage in what's known as triple planning.
And this is one of the biggest sources of instability. Authorities have to concurrently plan for three completely opposite scenarios. 1, they get leave to remain. 2, they're returned to their country of origin. And 3, they're refused leave but can't be removed.
Imagine trying to plan your life around three equally plausible but totally different outcomes.
That constant legal limbo, it's profoundly exhausting.
And then this instability is compounded by the hostile environment policies. How do those policies actively undermine the very support systems meant to help?
They create these fundamental contradictions. For example, the Home Office can impose no study conditions on immigration bail,
Wait, so one part of the state demands a pathway plan focused on education.
while another branch of the state imposes conditions that actively forbid them from accessing that same education.
That contradiction is just devastating. It must make success feel impossible.
It does. And on top of that, you have massive confusion over NHS charging, which can deter people from getting health care. And we can't forget that cuts to legal aid have created what people call advice deserts, making it incredibly difficult to get the legal help they need to challenge these things.
Okay, that paints a picture of intense systemic barriers. Given all this complexity, what then is the unique role of a mentor? The sources are clear that programs like Grand Mentors are explicitly not meant to replace professionals.
That distinction is absolutely paramount. A mentor is not a social worker, they're not a PA, they're not a lawyer. The mentor's job is focused on providing consistent emotional support, being a non-judgmental listening ear, offering practical advice, and most importantly, providing a steady presence. It's an intergenerational relationship that offers a meaningful, trusting connection completely outside the pressures of the formal system.
It sounds like the mentor fills a very human need that the system, just by its nature, can't.
Precisely, as one mentor put it, "I am here to listen, support, if necessary, give advice, and facilitate. I am not a social worker, a teacher."
Right. They're there for the personal journey and the consistency.
And that allows mentors to focus on practical things that build confidence, like life skills, self-esteem, setting achievable goals, and supporting their engagement in education, employment, or training. Maybe that's helping fill out a college application or just practicing English conversation.
And because of the trauma we discussed, mentors are trained in trauma-informed practice. This means recognizing the profound impact of trauma and taking a strength-based approach, actively working to avoid re-traumatization.
What does a strength-based approach look like in practice?
It looks like focusing on their resilience. So mentors might use solution-focused questions like the coping question. How have you managed to keep going despite all the challenges you faced?
Ah, I see.
It gently reinforces the young person's inherent capacity to survive. Now, we detail how complicated their housing and legal status are. You mentioned mentors must have strict boundaries, but doesn't requiring these young people to navigate all that on their own, especially with those advice deserts, risk leading to disempowerment? Where's the balance?
That is a critical tension, and the balance lies in referral, not delivery. A mentor cannot and should not handle the technical side of an asylum claim, or lend money, or deal with benefits paperwork
So they have to refer them.
immediately to the project coordinators or their personal advisor. The intention is to avoid fostering dependency. If the mentor took on the legal case, the young person might just rely on them. By focusing strictly on empowerment and self-advocacy, the mentor teaches them how to access the system rather than acting as a substitute for it.
So to bring this all together for you,
Mhm.
for a UASC, turning 18 is marked by legal and bureaucratic chaos. We've seen immense uncertainty, complex benefits access, and the ongoing impact of trauma, like memory loss and sleep disorders.
And the statutory system aims to provide structure, and it does, but even some of its mandatory interactions, like the intrusive questioning about their past trauma, can be fundamentally re-traumatizing.
So what does this all mean? When so much of a young person's life has been defined by instability and unreliable contacts, the mentor's consistency is the key counteragent. Just being reliable, keeping appointments, building that non-judgmental trust, those are powerful, necessary acts of care. They're foundational.
Which leads us to our final thought. Given that the systems designed to help can often fail these young people, or, worse, add to their trauma, the non-judgmental, stable, consistent presence of a mentor becomes not just an optional extra. It might just be the single most vital factor in restoring a young person's sense of safety and ultimately rebuilding their belief in the possibility of a stable future.